we can go ahead and get started. So I will turn it over to Dr. Michelle Jones-London to get us kicked off.
All right. So thank you all for joining us today. I know it's been we were just saying, it's been a pretty hectic week. I can't believe it's only the middle of the week. It feels like we've all done so much and experienced so much that it should be a Friday. But nevertheless, we're so happy to have you here with us today. Marguerite and I will go through this presentation, trying to really preserve time more for the Q&A, but we thought it'd be prudent for us to give you first a foundation. And so when it's time for Q&A, as you have questions that come up as we're speaking, you can put those in the chat. But also when we get to that portion of the talk, we'll also, you can ask your own questions. We'll begin to unmute you, okay? So welcome to the NINDS Open Conversations about NIH Diversity Supplements. Next slide. And so before we get going, I'd like to introduce you to the staff in the office and the reason why we use open as our marketing tool for everything that we do. It's the Office of Programs to Enhance Neuroscience Workforce Diversity, and it's at the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke. And I am the chief of that office. I have oversight for NINDS diversity training programs, but I also work closely with colleagues across the NIH Blueprint Institutes, which is a collaborative of 14 other institutes or centers at NIH that focus on neuroscience. And so DSPAN and Endure are a couple of those programs. And I also work with the BRAIN Initiative for its diversity programs. I'll touch on the BRAIN Initiative Diversity Supplement, but then there's also a BRAIN Initiative Diversity K99 that you should keep in back of their mind in terms of opportunities. In terms of the amazing team that I have to work with me to do all of these great things. First, I'll introduce Dr. Marguerite Matthews. She is the Diversity Supplement Coordinator, so she'll be taking over the other half of this talk. She's who you'll reach out to if you have questions about the Diversity Supplement. She's a scientific program manager in the office, and that's one of her hats, in addition to the Diversity F31 and working to make sure we can create professional development and mentoring programs with the Diversity R25. Lauren Ulrich, or Dr. Lauren Ulrich in the office is a program director. She oversees the F99 K00 along with me, and also the Diversity K01 and K22. And recently, we have just signed on to the Mosaic K99 R00. So for you on this call, helping us to outreach about that event, or if you yourself may be eligible for this program that basically is for advanced postdocs who you apply for the K99 portion, and then you get a transition to your first junior faculty position. We think it's a great program, and for this first June receipt date, we'd like to see a great number of applications. Lauren also is the program director for the Summer R25 in the office, and also the SCORE program. And so those are just some faces, the names, and the programs, because today we'll focus mainly on the diversity supplement, but as we'll talk about, the diversity supplement really is a bridge to some of these other individual awards that we hold in the office. Next slide. And so I've talked a little bit already about this. In terms of our goal in the office, it really is to open access and open opportunities to increase neuroscience workforce diversity. And we take that very seriously, not only through mechanism. Money is one thing, money is great, and fellowships and Ks, these are great things, but also we take attention to making sure that we're supporting professional development activities, mentoring, and really creating a sense of community and networks with the programs that we fund, and for the people outside in terms of neuroscience space, even if you don't have an F or a K with us. Next slide. And this is just an overview on the programs that I've touched on. really, as I said, as you're thinking about and strategizing your career, and this is especially for the trainees that may be on the call, feel free to reach out to us. Send us your specific aims, send us your bio sketch. As you look at this slide, what you get a sense of is that from high school to junior faculty, we pretty much have the career stages covered in terms of programs. Now, there may be certain eligibility in terms of, how long you've been a postdoc, or did you just first start in the lab for, the F-32, but those are things that we're very happy to discuss. Because as I said before, we don't create these programs just to create programs. We create these programs to really help foster the success of you on your career journey. Next slide. And so let's get to the business at hand, talking about the diversity supplements. And the first thing you should know is that the diversity supplement is what is considered an administrative supplement. And what that means is that an administrative supplement is a non-competing award that provides additional funding to a currently funded grant. And so there's already has to be a grant that exists. And with regards to the diversity supplement program, there are several mechanisms that are eligible to be supplemented by the diversity supplement program. And they can be R01s, R21s, R15s, but also some of the P mechanisms like a P50, a P01. So if you have any doubt about, is my specific mechanism eligible, you can always look in the FOA and it'll give you a list of participating mechanisms. And if you're still unsure, you can reach out to us. Being an administrative supplement also means that it's administratively reviewed by the particular institute or center that holds that original grant, or what we call a parent grant. That means that it's not sent out for peer review. There are no study sections. It's all internally reviewed. What it also means is that because there's no peer review, you have to propose projects that exist within the scope of the parent grant. And we'll talk a little bit later about what that actually means, because it doesn't mean that it has to be an exact cut and paste, but it does have to be in a research area that everyone would feel comfortable that this doesn't need to go back out for peer review. And the way that you can determine that is not by you deciding, well, no, I think this is still within scope. All you do is really reach out to the program director who holds the parent grant, and they will help make that decision about whether this is within scope or not in scope. And in terms of the diversity supplement program, it's really great to say this. This doesn't happen a lot for, when we're talking about Fs or Ks. We always have to have the caveat of, well, this IC may not participate, or this one does, or this one doesn't. With the diversity supplement program, it really is one of those programs that goes across the entirety of NIH. So all NIH institutes have the diversity supplement program. But the small disclaimer is ICs have different deadlines and different policies. And so what we'll talk about today can give you sort of a nice overview of the diversity supplement program if perhaps you're applying to another institute, but I wouldn't hold what we're saying today as gospel for a different institute. What we're saying today is really applies to how NINDS views diversity supplements and its program. If you're going to apply to another institute, you'll want to reach out to their diversity supplement coordinator. Next slide. So also, what is pretty fantastic, especially now, is that they've taken this sort of generic or more general diversity supplement program or research supplements to promote diversity, and several research areas at NIH have decided to use their dedicated funds to help facilitate programs in their very specific research areas. So in addition to just the parent grant FOA, you'll see that there are also diversity supplements targeted for parent grants that specifically deal with ADRD, also with HEAL, which is focused on pain research, and then also the BRAIN initiative. And so if you are an investigator in that space, you'll also want to think about making sure that when you apply, you use those specific notice numbers so that the funds set aside specifically for diversity supplements in that research space can take advantage of that solicitation. There are also supplements to promote diversity in research and development in small businesses. So that means that SBIR and STTR grants also have a specific FOA or funding opportunity announcement to make a call for diversity supplements. And there the language is a little bit different in terms of what's being expected in terms of training. For many of these small business opportunities, there could be very almost internship-like experiences, or people can be, just maybe not doing the same sort of framework of training as just your typical postdoc. And they make allowances for that in the language of those targeted FOAs. So if you hold one of those mechanisms, you'll want to look at that program announcement. And finally, I'll mention a administrative supplement, research supplement that really is in the training realm, but not so much targeted for diversity. It's to promote reentry. And what we mean about reentry is people that have taken, I believe it's 1 to 5 years out of the research path. And this could be due to medical reasons, maybe childcare, taking care of elder parents, but taking a step out of the research pathway, and now this person wants to re-enter. This is another program that can be key in terms of getting people back into the research enterprise after they've left. Next slide. And so in terms of our sort of vision of what is our goal for this program, how do we view this program? For us, the Diversity Supplement Program is a match between a dedicated mentor and a trainee that needs research exposure and training, and that this marriage will then lead to this person either transitioning to the next step of their career, or in the short term, being able to apply for their own competitive award. And in terms of what we fund, about 51% of all the diversity supplement awards are graduate students and about 28% are postdoc. But as I said, and as you saw on that earlier slide, we really do accept diversity supplements all the way, or starting from high school all the way to junior faculty. The junior faculty example, there are some caveats to it, but we do accept diversity supplements across the careers, the career span. In terms of what the supplement can support, it can support salary and fringe benefits. And then there are funds that can be requested for supplies and travel. And on our website, we have a chart about what is the max for each career stage. The dollars, of course, go up as you go across career stages. So for example, you would have more travel dollars and more supplies for somebody that is a postdoc versus somebody who is getting an undergraduate research exposure. And in terms of this mentorship, it really is something we take seriously. As I said, we want bona fide, authentic mentorship relationships. We don't view this as a, sort of a bypass to just get more money in there. We really want this to be meaningful in terms of the mentor being dedicated to this person and really being dedicated to seeing them grow and flourish in their career development, but also their research development. In terms of how we fund these and the timing, they're usually typically 2 to 3 years. And the timing, we get asked this all the time, it really depends on where the person is at. For example, if you're a third-year graduate student, it would be probably expected that at most you would request 2 years. But otherwise, if a person is just starting their graduate school, they're in their first or maybe just beginning the second year, then it's kind of reasonable that you would request the 3 years. But throughout all of this, what you'll see is that we'll have language if the award is considered approved, that will have language in there about an expectation that that person is applying for their appropriate individual award during this time period. And we really want to use this supplement experience to really gain the research experience, preliminary data, and other requirements to really launch them. And as you know, as I've said a couple of times now, this really has become a feeder program for our diversity Fs, like the F31 and also the F99 K00, but also our Ks, K22, which is ending in February. But now we'll see this be a feeder for the Mosaic program that's starting in June. And even in terms of, you know, supporting junior faculty, it can be a bridge to that first R01. And so next slide, as we're talking about the junior faculty, some things to just keep in mind is that for the diversity supplements, because of the fact that it is, like I said, it has to be within scope, and you're talking about working off of somebody else's project, it can get, excuse me, it can get kind of tricky in terms of, we don't want to prevent a junior faculty person from being able to successfully take ownership of their research and project. And so here we have a couple of rules in terms of making sure that, you know, the junior faculty person can stand on their own and can go towards that independence. And so candidates with a history of previously funded R awards, meaning that the person that you're trying to support for the supplement can't already have had an R grant. That would make them ineligible. The other thing is that there can be short-term investigator research supplements. And this, you know, some examples of this, you could be a diverse researcher who is at a very heavily teaching intensive school, but perhaps in the summers you have free time to pursue that type of research. We've seen those examples of people strategically using the diversity supplement to gain that exposure and to be able to perform those projects. And there, the language is they can do this for ongoing projects while further developing their own research potential. That's an appropriate use of the supplement for a junior faculty level person. In terms of long-term investigator research diversity supplement support, there you would be looking at a person that has to be appointed at least within 24 months. And the project, you really, it is up to the mentor and the mentee to really talk about how this project will enhance his or her ability to really compete for that independent grant support. The applicant should provide clear justification for why they need the supplement. Why can't they just apply for a K to then a bridge to the R grant? They should talk about the barriers or feasibilities of, you know, with issues that make submission of one of these individual awards not really a competitive strategy at the time. And there can be reasons. And certainly we've seen this a lot with maybe our MD, PhD junior faculty who entitle our junior faculty, but in terms of perhaps papers and research time are really presenting as more as postdocs than junior faculty. And so those folks sometimes take advantage of using the supplement to then move to that K or that R grant. So next slide. And so here at this point, I've given you sort of how we view the program, what we value, and how we use it. And now Marguerite will give you a deeper dive into the application components themselves. So over to you, Marguerite.
Now I get the pleasure of talking and trying to control the slides at the same time. That would seem easy, maybe in person, but virtually it seems to be a challenge. So thank you for that overview, Michelle. And so I wish we had a poll, because this would be a great time to think about, and this is not Michelle's fault, this is my fault, finding out who has, maybe you can type in the chat, are there anybody, is there anyone here who has already applied for a supplement grant and maybe got it if you're a PI? If you applied and maybe didn't get it, maybe say, let us know in the chat. Because sometimes if you've had a research experience with getting a diversity supplement through the National Institute of Mental Health or through drug abuse, you may have had a different experience or gotten different guidance. So just think about this as a fresh opportunity to apply. Even if you've applied through us, hopefully going through some of these things will allow you to understand sort of more specifically what we're looking for. And to Michelle's point, really thinking about this as a transition opportunity, either transition in your actual career or transition to getting independent funding. But this is not a give me. If your PI is treating this as just something that is easy to get, and we'll just throw something together and turn it in, that really shouldn't be what's happening here. There should be a lot of thought going into this. And a lot of these components, especially if you're a PhD student or even a postdoc, can be used for a fellowship application or a career development application because you've put in the time to think about what do I need. So just as also a point of information, the candidate, the trainee, and the PI can work on this together. This is something that can be written together. If the PI really believes that the candidate has the ability to write it on their own, that's fine too, and giving them credit even within the application bounds. It's technically coming from the PI, and the award is awarded to the PI of the lab who has the parent grant. But this does not have to be their writing it on your behalf or on behalf of the trainee. It certainly can be a joint effort, and we're hoping that it is, that you all are talking to each other because we can tell when there are two separate things going on in the application from the candidate's perspective and from the mentor. All right, so the research and career development plan. This is going to be different than a fellowship because you're sort of combining the research plan with the career development and training components. This is a maximum of 8 pages, but some people do not take advantage of those 8 pages and telling us what you're going to do as far as research is concerned. How does this relate to the parent grant? So you're going to have a summary of the funded grant, but also how does this project relate to the proposed project? And this may look different depending on what level the candidate is. If it's an undergraduate, it's likely going to look very similar to what's already in the parent grant. You're trying to teach this person techniques, giving them some independence so that this is part of, this is their project, but it's not going to be vastly different. Something that's going to be used to apply for, say, an F31 predoctoral fellowship. But for pre-docs, you really want to think about how you can allow them to work on the parent grant within scope of the parent grant, but giving them the opportunity to have their own project, how this is going to allow them to build their dissertation work, especially if they're earlier on. It might serve as an opportunity to get pilot data to be able to apply for a grant. And this goes with postdocs as well. So it can be sort of tricky, but it's important to think through that. And if you have questions, talk to the program director of the parent grant. Is this within scope? Do you think this project aligns well with the candidate as well as what I have proposed in the parent grant? And you want to think about how this research experience is going to enrich the candidate's experience. So is it stage appropriate? If you're trying to have a very tough, very risky part of this project for an undergrad who just said, hey, I want to get summer research experience, that's probably not appropriate. It may be more appropriate for a senior graduate student or a graduate student who may be in year 2 of the PhD program, but they have a master's. So they've really developed some skills and want to utilize that skill for something else. So that should be detailed in the research plan. The next really important part of this is the career development. It should be something that's structured, specific, and stage appropriate. So generic career development plan might be this graduate student is going to take their qualifying exam, they're going to propose their dissertation, and they're going to take ethics, and they're going to attend journal club once a week. All graduate students do that. That's not anything new. It's okay to include that because that is something that they're going to have to do. It's a requirement for the program, but what are things that are specific to the trainee? Again, look at the the career stage that they're at or the training stage that they're at, and decide what things will really enrich them. Is it grant writing? Are you going to work with them on reviewing your manuscript so they have an opportunity to really think like a reviewer? So when they're writing their own publications or a grant, they can think about what how to write to be understood and not to dazzle, and things like that. So those types of details of what the specific candidate needs may be very important. Again, it might be on skills. You really want them to hone their skills. So how can you, are they going to be taking classes at Woods Hole? Are they going to take a short course at SFN? Those type of details, you do not have to skimp on them. Show some thoughtfulness about what you think this person needs. And if you are the person writing it, if you're the mentee, the trainee, think about, what do I need to get to the next level in my career? If I'm going to apply for an F31 or an F32 or a career development award, what do I need to make a strong application? And write those things down. Timelines help, being able to say when you're going to get it done. I'm going to apply for the F99 DSPAN award in such and such a cutoff date, and I'm going to give myself this amount of time to resubmit. Those details matter, and show that the candidate has been thinking about this and the mentor has also been thinking about this. And just as an FYI, all of these are detailed on our website. So I'm not reading them specifically, but trying to give you an opportunity to just think about what some of these words on this slide, as I know it's very busy, but what they mean. So for the mentor, the PI of the parent grant, you will need to include a section on your mentoring experience. If you are a junior faculty and maybe you've only had one graduate student in the lab, and this is going to be graduate student number 2, or their graduate student number 1, it's going to be really important for you to get a more senior mentor as a co-mentor for this student or for this trainee, and think about how can they fill in maybe some of the gaps that you just haven't had because you are not experienced in training candidates at that level, be it postdoc level. Many junior faculty oftentimes have a lot of undergraduates that they've worked with, so they have a lot of experience. So perhaps it may not be as necessary for a co-mentor for, say, an undergraduate experience. But think about the candidate and what they're going to need, and ensure that you're including all of their information. How many trainees have they trained? At what level? What happens to them afterwards? How are they doing? If you are a PI who has had a diversity supplement before, we want to know how they're doing. Did they run for the hills because it was such a terrible experience? I know you wouldn't tell us that, and hopefully that's never happened. But we do want to know where they went on to be. It's fine if they did not stay in academia, they took a job in industry, or they pursued a AAAS fellowship and now they're working at NIH as a program director or a scientific program manager. We would like to know those things. So it's important for you to be thoughtful in that, not just list the number of trainees that I've trained 25 graduate students and I've been on 56 dissertation committees. We want to know some details, especially if you're applying for a candidate that's a postdoc. Tell us what your postdocs are doing, where they've gone on, if they're still in the lab, if they have gone on to take faculty positions. We want to see that track record. And if you have any collaborators working with your candidates, with your trainee, we would also like to know a little bit about them and the role that they're going to play. So it's also important to make sure that, especially if they're a co-mentor, we want their bio sketch and their mentoring track record. But if they're maybe playing more auxiliary role, we still want to know what that relationship is going to be like, what that mentoring interaction is going to be like. The candidate statement. So this is from our trainees. You will probably include this in your bio sketch in the personal statement section. So that's really the first section after listing out your education. And since likely if you're probably a pre-doc and below, you don't have 5 pages, you haven't reached the max with your experience yet. So you have plenty of space to tell us all about yourself. We want to know what your research experience is. Have you ever done research? If you would like to tell us how you got interested in research or involved in research, you're welcome to give us some of that context and backstory. But we want to know about you and what you want to do, not only with this, with your life in general, where you see yourself going, becoming an investigator, but how you see this proposal helping you get there. Is this going to help you prepare for an NRSA F31 application? Is this going to help you apply to graduate school or get into that MSTP program? We want to hear those details. And also, if you're especially if you're currently working on research in that laboratory, we want to know how it's going. What have you done? What's the type of research you've been engaged in? Perhaps you've really just been learning techniques and haven't had the chance to fully develop those questions. That would be, that would go here. So thinking about your research, but also your career goals, and where you see yourself. And if for the purposes of the NINDS Diversity Supplement, you need to be engaged in and interested in neuroscience. We know we have a lot of biomedical folks and chemistry folks who are doing neuro-related research, but they are true and true chemists. They just so happen to be working on chemistry in perhaps, the brain, or you're really a cancer biologist, but you just happen to be working on gliomas. This may not be the right opportunity for you. But if that is your background, you do come from, you have a physics background or a computational background, and you're really trying to apply that to a neuroscience setting, and the brain is really where you see yourself, or I should say the entire nervous system, because we're not going to be prejudiced just against the brain alone. There's other parts, spinal cord and nerves. We want to hear about how you're going to learn more neuroscience. Are you going to take classes? Are you going to be more heavily involved in neuroscience related journal clubs? Scientific conferences, or conferences that are going to help sort of allow you to learn more about the nervous system. That's going to be really critical. So we want to hear about that from you. And I hope this goes without saying, but your candidate statement should match up with everything else in the entire application. It should match the research plan. It should match the career development plan. It should match what the mentor says the relationship is going to be between the two of you, that you're working towards the goals that you have set about yourself. And oh, one last thing, if for some reason you had a really bad semester, COVID did a number on you and you just couldn't get out of bed, and so you failed an entire semester worth of courses, that's okay. Don't freak out. You aren't counted out because you had one bad semester. Maybe you had a bad year. You had to work full time to put yourself through undergrad. And so your grades aren't stellar, but you're now in a graduate program. Acknowledge it. Say, hey, this is, I know that I didn't do very well in organic chemistry because organic chemistry is the devil. It was tough, but as you can see from my other grades, I'm a really strong student. I've been able to overcome. That should be in the candidate statement. You don't have to have a sob story. It doesn't have to be full of excuses. It is just to provide context to your academic record. And of course, also, if you had a break in your research training, say you needed to take time off, a leave of absence from school, again, you can acknowledge it. We don't need the details, but having some, if we see that there's 2 years where nothing was going on, or it looks like you're a fifth year postdoc or fifth year graduate student, but really you're a third year, it would be nice to provide some context for those specific instances. I forgot that I was getting to this part. So all your coursework and grades would go in if you are a graduate student and below. Again, you just need to mention them. It can go in your bio sketch. If you would like to attach your transcript, that's okay too, but that would need to be there. So the supplement review, as Michelle mentioned, this is reviewed in-house. The program director of the parent grant is going to sort of take the lead on reviewing the application, and then a committee will make final funding decisions and go through this. And in open, we really try to be open about different situations that happen. Because we see these supplements as important transition opportunities, we do look at the entire package. So you weren't the best academic student ever. that's okay. What are you doing in your research? How have you grown, and what things are you going to do to continue to grow and fill in any gaps that you have? Say you haven't published a paper, but you're in year 5 of your doctoral education and things just haven't gone right, or you have a lot of little data, but you need more to put together a story. That's okay too. We're looking at all of this, but you have to give us something to review in order for us to review you as a whole person. So if you had a child or adopted a child or had to take care of your family, and so that might have put a damper on your productivity, we would like to know that. We can't guess that, maybe because we think that you might possibly be a woman because there's she pronouns in your application, that we would just assume that the reason why there's 2 years of a gap is missing. So allow us to review you holistically if we can. And if you don't have that information, we can't do that. And we'll have to do some damage control on the back end once you get that funding decision. But we do look at the scientific components of the grant. Again, it has to be within scope. Is there evidence that this project is really going to help you, not the other grad student in the lab, not the other postdoc in the lab, not postdocs that have been in the lab before, but is this going to help you further your research development? And is it stage appropriate? The training and career goals, we want to know what your qualifications are. Again, it will be appropriate. You will be sort of seen at your stage. Again, even in pre-doc, that can be a long time period. A lot can happen within those 5 years. So we're looking at where you are now and where you're planning on going. And do you have an interest in neuroscience? Do your career goals match up with our mission at the NINDS? Is the career development plan structured, or is it just we're going to, this person is going to go to school, take their classes, and be done with it? And then for the mentoring, we want to see evidence of a strong mentoring relationship, that you're talking, that we have information about the types of interactions you're going to have, be that with the one primary mentor or multiple mentors, how are they interacting, and the mentor's qualifications. All of those things are considered when being reviewed by both the program director as well as the entire committee. And it is made up of all of our scientific clusters at NINDS. So you have folks from different backgrounds who are helping weigh in. And this really is about, do we think that this is a strong application for this candidate? Are they going to be given what they need to succeed? And sorry to say, sometimes it is the mentor that is the weak link. The candidate's great. Candidate is clearly kicking butt, is doing a great job, has a lot of great things going for them, but we don't believe that the mentor is providing the right training experience for them. It may just be a grantsmanship issue. They forgot to add a section, or they were really very vague. But when we talk to them on the phone, they are clearly very thoughtful about this person. Or is it just a situation where, oh, this is a diversity supplement, you look like you could qualify, we're going to go ahead and just put something in. So be sure to have this conversation. If you are a trainee and your mentor is not here, get as much information as you can, but make sure your mentor is on board with what you want to do. If the two of you want to call me and have a conversation about your application, I'm happy to talk to you both. If you want to call me to talk about your application, we can do that as well. And mentors, certainly feel free to reach out because we want you to submit the best application possible, because it's so much more than just the supplement, right? We really are hoping that this is a gateway, if you will, into other types of funding, whether it's through NIH or you want to apply for the HHMI Gilliam Fellowship. There are other, many of our supplementees go on to get prestigious foundation awards from the professional societies that also fund their work. So we're hoping that this is a good training ground for and laying the foundation for what's to come. So we want to fund all of you, but we can't. It's just this money does not grow on trees, apparently. So sometimes availability of funds is the rate limiting step, but we do base this off of the merit of the application. And probably with most grants at NIH, if you get rejected, it's not a knock on you. It just may not have been the strongest application at the time. that it was submitted. But we do also want to make sure that we are funding people who we believe have the potential to continue on. Again, it's not just the cream of the crop. We're not picking people just because they have the most stellar grades and they're, doing Neuron published work. This is about you and the thought put into your training experience. So that's all I have for going over the formal components. And we'll take questions, but one last thing, this is helpful for mentors. This is helpful for mentees. This is for folks who are about to become mentors. You're about to get your faculty position. We have a podcast called Building Up the Nerve, and it is with trainees in mind. But Lauren and I, we co-host this podcast, but we've even heard from our colleagues that work at NIH saying, hey, I listened to it and I learned so much about how NIH works, and NINDS specifically, but this is for you. And episodes are about 40 to 50 minutes. You can listen to it while you're maybe doing experiments, or even for our PIs out there, this is a great way to think about some things to consider for your trainees and making sure that they have the right information. We are always the best point of contact. Don't listen to your colleagues. They may want to give you the best advice possible, but that advice is not always right. So talk to a program officer first, consult all the resources that we have for you, but we want to make it as easy for you to access this information as possible. This shouldn't be a hard thing to do. It shouldn't feel like you can't do it. We want to give you the best shot to just develop yourself as a scientist all the way around. So I will take questions now. Thank you.
Thank you, Marguerite, for a wonderful presentation. And so I think we've been trying to answer questions that have come in. Like I said, I'll go in and allow you to unmute yourselves. But I guess to start, one of the questions, and we get this a lot, is, are you allowed to have multiple applications, is usually the first question. And the answer is yes. We think that there is sometimes strength to having a mentor have multiple supplementees at the same time, especially for undergraduate summer research exposures. It's really nice to get that sense of cohort and to have that person not be an N of one. So multiple diversity supplements are allowable, but each one is reviewed for its own merit. And it means that you can't just cut and paste. Each individual has different needs and different strengths and different weaknesses. And so each application must pay attention to them as an individual. So you'll have to send in a separate application for each trainee. That was one. Is it possible to get a copy of the presentation? Sure, we'll post it on our website and then send a link to those who have registered. We've also gotten a lot of questions about who qualifies as diverse. There is an NIH diversity policy statement that we've put into the chat. It is clear about the categories that they illustrate. They fall into underrepresented groups by race and ethnicity, persons with disability, but then also those who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. For that category, you're going to have to choose 2 of the 7 that are listed. So I would say take a look at that diversity policy, and then if you have questions, we're more than happy to talk to you about that. So does anybody want to unmute themselves and ask a question to keep this lively?
Yes.
No, you wanted me to keep being Vanna and reading the questions? Okay. What else do we have in here?
We have a question from Sonia Bernal.
Okay.
If a collaborator is going to have an auxiliary role in the mentoring, is their biosketch also required?
Yeah, I would include it. And then I would also make sure you have a letter from that collaborator saying they know what their role is going to be. A lot of times we'll have people, give us this all-star lineup of the people that are to be involved in terms of a mentoring team, but we don't have any letters from them. So we really need to see the letters from the people that have committed to being a part of your mentoring team. And I don't know, I know that I see a few names. I don't know if the program directors who are involved in this review have any comments.
I think we have another question.
Oh, we have another question?
Teresa, I saw you're unmuted. Do you want to ask your question?
Hi, everybody. That's very helpful. But thank you very much for all the information. My name is Teresa Sanchez. I'm a PI in a grant from NINDS. I work here at Weill Cornell Medical College. And I was wondering, this is the first time that I'm applying, or I may be applying for a diversity supplement. And I was wondering if the PI is also from an underrepresented minority. I was wondering if it's also possible to request some percentage, some funds to cover a percentage of the effort of the PI to mentor the mentee, or or like protect some time from the PI to really mentor the person, or it's just not allowed?
No, we don't allow that. We do consider, especially if it's your own lab, like that's part of the duties of taking someone into your lab is their mentoring and is their nurturing. So we don't allow the PI or the mentor to claim salary. Also, remember, this is going to be a supplement to the parent grant, and so your salary will also be covered by that parent grant.
Okay, it's good to know. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Well, hi, this is Walter. Of course, as I'm the director at NINDS, and I just wanted to thank Michelle and Marguerite and Lauren for putting this session on, and just to emphasize how important these efforts are in trying to advance our science. We're really serious about trying to bring diverse perspectives to our science because we think it's going to make our science better. And we have a lot of problems that we can't figure out. So we need all the help we can get. So yes. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Walter.
Thank you, Walter. Yeah, as I said, you could tell our dedication to this area of topic. Our institute director, he's got 10 million things to do, but he comes to our webinars. So hopefully it's a visual representation of, what we value. And we're glad that you joined us today as well to find out more about it. Are there additional?
I have a question from Angeline.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Angeline. I'm a fourth-year PhD candidate at the University of California, Irvine. So I have the NSF, and then that ends this year. I'm wondering if it would be better to apply for a diversity supplement for my last year of graduate school or the F99K00.
Oh, that's an easy one for me.
I was gonna.
if you're looking for that transition, the beauty of the F99K00, right, is that you then have that golden ticket for when it comes time for the postdoc. You have that money in hand and you can negotiate and you empower yourself to get the mentoring you deserve and want at your next position. So you need to reach out to us and we want you to apply for the DSPAN.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
We have a question from Neil Simon. I don't know if you want to unmute yourself.
I think I am.
Hey, Neil.
Yes.
Hi, Michelle. How are you? So I wanted to ask, I'm on a multi-investigator grant, so there's only one PI. Can senior key personnel with the appropriate experience be the mentor on one of these diversity supplements, or can it only be the PI?
It could be, you can have the main PI and the senior key personnel put it in together and then articulate how the primary duties will come through, or the mentoring will be the senior key personnel, but that the main PI should still be engaged in it. But the application has to come through the main PI.
Okay. Thanks.
But that also brings up another point. If you're in a situation where there are multi-PIs, or say, for example, there are multiple sites, you can imagine like a P grant, each person can be a mentor, a primary mentor, But once again, whoever is listed as the sponsoring institution where the grant was submitted through, they need to be the person to submit the administrative supplement. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thanks, Michelle.
Any other questions? I mean, we still have a little time left. Are there any questions about some of our other diversity mechanisms that folks are curious about, be it our R25s, our K awards? So I think it's also important to note that this is a great NIH 101 that I'm about to give you really quick. While many programs have parent announcements that are funded by all of the ICs, many of those programs, as you get into the postdoc and beyond level, can be specialized to specific ICs. So it's important to read the funding announcement. So many of you know or may not know, and this is also important for PIs to know, the NINDS F30 does not support the parent F32 announcement for NIH that many other institutes support. We have our own F32, and that's the NRSA for postdoctoral trainees. And that's a fellowship opportunity that you can apply to within a year of, close your ears, Angeline, you're not applying for this, but you can apply for a year, up to a year before you start the postdoc, and within a year of starting the postdoc. So you cannot be a second year postdoc applying for our F32. And the reason is because we want you to think about your training experience going into the postdoc and having a chance to think up a project that you don't have to, you're actually discouraged from having preliminary data for. So we don't want you to have that because this really should be your brainchild and an opportunity for you to work with your future or, very new postdoc PI to think about a training opportunity for you. And we also have a few K awards that are that we used, the numbers are differently used here at NINDS than they might be used elsewhere. So it's important to read the title. It will give you a really big hint on who it's for, but also the information within it, because we do not want you to end up sending something to the wrong place and you don't even get reviewed, or it gets kicked back to you, or you don't get funded because it's at the wrong place. So think very strategically as you, especially as you advance in your research career. The F31, all of us support the F31, the general F31 and the diversity F31, but it gets a little trickier as you get higher up.
Yeah. And you know what? I think I see questions about the R25 and I see that Dr. Poe is here. I want to do a little cross promotion. Since this is a SFN Connectome event, one of the programs that we've been very proud at the NINDS to support through this R25 or Research Education Grant Mechanism is Society for Neuroscience Scholars Program. And they have an application receipt date coming up. So Gina, can you give us a few words about the program and about what people need to do to apply to be competitive?
Yes, thank you, Michelle. I am one of the co-directors of the Neuroscience Scholars Program, and it is for graduate students and postdocs who are from groups that are underrepresented in the neurosciences. And what it is, it's a 2-year program that provides educational supplementary funds for the fellows, and also lots of programming to help you become a leader in the neuroscience field. So it fosters your leadership development. It pays for you to go to Society for Neuroscience meeting. It provides $1,500 a year in educational supplementary funds, so you can go to other labs and learn a technique or do something that really helps your career get boosted. And then every other year, we also have a meeting where we talk about leadership. So if you have a 2-year fellowship, you can go to one of those meetings. And also there are lots of things that Society for Neuroscience has built to support the program ad infinitum. So for the rest of your career, you're an NSP alumnus and you can take advantage of all kinds of resources at the website for NSP that I think was put up here by Lauren Ulrich. So, so let's see. So there are, it funds, let's see, it funds, I think something like 16 fellows and about 60 associates per year, and associates get a lot of the benefits as well. And you can apply as many times as you want. If you're accepted as an associate the first time, you can keep applying until you get to be accepted as a fellow. And yeah, it's a great program. It's been going for over 30 years and has over 700 alumni associated with it. So
including myself and Michelle.
No, and I would say it's a great community. I know from, speaking for myself personally, I was an N of 1 at the graduate school that I was a part of. And so to have a community where I could, feel a sense of belonging was really powerful to me. And that's sort of a benefit of the program that, once again, when we talk about it, we talk about the money, we talk about the other things, but those are the intangible things where you gain this family it is really powerful and can help to sustain you. So I would say for a lot of the trainees that I see on this webinar, if you aren't already an NSP scholar, to really think about it, to apply, and you won't regret it. You won't regret it. The mentorship, the networking, the peer mentoring is really powerful. And I think January 14th, right, is the launch of the application. So take a look now and get the things ready that you need to get ready with. I think some of it is recommendations. And so you can start doing that now. So,
and if, yeah, and can I was just one more thing, which is, yeah, go ahead, Marguerite. I was just going to say the application for the NSP program also applies to, you can just check a box and you can be considered also for the Spines program that Angeline Dukes has participated in as well. And she plugged in the last panel discussion she was in. And Spines is kind of like NSP, but it's different. It's different format, a different way to deliver a lot of the same information. And also it's another parallel and interacting community with the NSP community. And there's also other programs like Brains, which is a wonderful, wonderful program. Yeah, so it's shorter than NSP, but it's also extremely intensive and lots of mentoring and another way to gain a community. And then there's MINDS, which is more the step from postdoctoral to faculty position, allows support there too. So there are lots of other ones, and if anybody else wants to say
National Research Mentoring Network. And so I think we have something on our website, and maybe when we put this information, we'll include some of those links. But yes, having that sense of community is really important, and creating those networks is something that we have really tried to invest in. So please take advantage of it. So
and
I know we're add your time. We have 1 minute.
Yeah, I just wanted to add also for PIs out there who are thinking, what can I do to help support diversity and inclusion and equity, and how can I help be part of the solution? We want action, not just, oh, sorry that, terrible things are going on in the world. You might want to consider working with your colleagues even to apply for an R25 that
absolutely
institution, partnering institutions to continue building that community, because it's so important. As you can see, Michelle and I are both alum of the NSP program, and it's made all the difference in how we see ourselves as professionals. And so sometimes just having the research funding isn't enough. It is the community that really helps build. So pardon my washing machine singing, but yes, so please think about that. And if you have ideas or want to know more, schedule some time to talk with one of us about the opportunity to consider that as another opportunity to help our amazing scholars.
Yeah, and we'll put up our social contacts, if you put up that slide, so you can see ways to connect with us. We're pretty active on Twitter. People send us opportunities all the time in terms of positions either faculty or postdocs where they're really looking to recruit diversity, and we then put that out to the community. So please join us on Twitter. But then we also have a listserv where we send out funding opportunity announcements, not only from our institute, but from the other neuroscience institutes as well. So you may want to consider joining us there. And so with that, I don't want to take up your time. If you want to stay on, we're kind of boring people. We'll stay on. We don't have anything else to do right now. No happy hour for us.
Hey,
No happy hour for us.
I don't know if there are any deltas on the call, but happy Founders Day. You might be wanting to.
Well, I'll speak for myself. I'll stay on the Zoom and I'll stay here as long as people want to chat, but I do want to officially end this so that others who are probably more active and lively can go on with their Wednesday evening plans. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you all.
I do have one question regarding the NSP. So I'm a first-year graduate student at Albert Einstein, and I'm still in my rotation stage, and I'm looking at the requirements now. It says that you would like an advisor bio-sketch. I would imagine it would be in my best interest to wait until I declare to then apply for NSP, or is it not too early? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it's never too early as long as you're in graduate school. But you can apply early and apply often.
Okay,
so
sure.
It wouldn't hurt you to put together the application materials. For one thing, it gets you thinking about involvement and all of that. It doesn't hurt, and it doesn't hurt to get your advisors and mentors to start writing letters for you. So, but it is better in that sense. It is good to have a mentor and advisor. Some people have, though, other former mentors writing for them. So, yeah, that's my advice. I don't know,
Thank you.
Dr. Jones-London, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, part of the strength of this is to have someone really make a case for you in their lab. And, so maybe it might be a little bit too soon. And, the fact is the program has been funded. This is the renewal, right? It was just this year. So it'll be there for you. It'll be there for you.
And there's they're on Twitter, the NSPeeps, so you can still have community without formally being part of the community for sure. They would love to take you under their wings.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other? Hey, hi. I see so many friendly, familiar faces. It's nice. Kind of makes me feel like I'm at SFN. Oh, just a little bit.
A little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. That is, I will say, the thing I have looked forward to most since I've been outside of academia is having the opportunity to go to SFN. I have not missed an SFN since I first went as a first-year graduate student. In whatever year that was, don't remember, so long ago. But it has changed so much. I mean, you could shoot a cannon and not hit a brown person. And now it's, everywhere you go, you see these beautiful shades all throughout the convention center. And it really is so nice to see that grow and all of the efforts across SFN, but even other, sending students there. So I highly recommend, when it's safe to do so, to make sure you're there and getting plugged in with various people. To great opportunity to be to find mentors. I was offered 3 postdoc positions at the diversity poster session in my 5th year, I think it was. So folks are there. They want to find you. They want to see good scientists, so they know that they have quality folks to choose from. Those opportunities. Oh, Julia, thank you you're still here, putting your question in the chat. So Julia is a program officer for the SBIR STTR grants, and wanted to know about how to match folks with a diversity supplement mentor, or I guess a person who has a grant that is eligible for a diversity supplement.
And I thought Lauren, maybe they missed it in the thread, but Lauren had mentioned using Reporter. Is sometimes how people sort of reverse engineer the relationships, is looking at, so reporter.gov is a system where all federal programs, and I want to say all federal, but I think NIH, NSF, others are in there, but at least we know it's NIH awarded programs are listed in there. And you can search by key terms. You can search by, R44, you can put the mechanism in there, or you can search by geographic area. It's a really powerful tool, and I think Lauren just put it in there. There you can sort of see who has these mechanisms and then kind of, do these outreach to individuals. That gets a little harder. I mean, the strategy that I always recommend is using your network, especially if you do have some type of research experience, maybe asking your mentor to help you do the lifting for that in terms of matching. But we don't have a matching program. I know NIDA does for its summer research program, and there they reach out to all of their people that they funded, and then they have a database, and then they go in and they match people for the summer. But most NIH institutes do not do that type of
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, Julia.
Oh, great. I wasn't sure. I'm not turning my video on because really bad hair day. So yeah, thank you. Great presentation too. Really appreciated it. Yes, so SBIR grants are unique, and they're usually more short-term, and it's not a part of necessarily university community, so maybe we have a unique challenge there. But yes, I had questions from candidates who feel like they want to learn more about biomedical entrepreneurship, and kudos to them. And then how do you find a mentor? So I guess it's something that we have to work on. Maybe I'll contact you later after the event. But yeah, thank you. It sounds like you have multiple ways for your trainees to get away into the system and increase their skills. Awesome.
And if you want to some people have done this have been successful, because some people, they admire that, right? They admire that person's gumption and initiative to just reach out to them. We have a few, success stories, but I think people should just go in knowing the risk. It doesn't guarantee if you reach out that they're necessarily going to be receptive.
I think in the before times when we could physically go to a conference and you can have those conversations with students that may have a particular interest, and when you're at their poster, they tell you, I would love to be able to work on, mechanics of something, and you can point them to, oh, this is an opportunity, and there might be some folks here with those grants, because a lot of times program directors are also there, so they can make those matches. But if you want to reach out to us, Julia, we are trying to work strategically with our SBIR team to think about, they're trying to think also about who they have in their portfolio and ways that they could connect to anyone who reaches out to them. So it may be outreach on both sides, is knowing the portfolio, who has those eligible SBIR and STTR grants. And then if someone were to approach them or even approach us, we can say, hey, we know how to connect you. So if you want to brainstorm with us, happy to connect you with Natalie Trzynski at NINDS. To think more about that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions from you after party people?
I feel like I need a glass of wine.
Would you prefer, because I am going to contact you about this D-SPAN, would you prefer that I have the specific aims written up?
Yeah, I think it's helpful.
Or even just a summary of the project is fine. You don't have a complete final draft.
And that's good advice for everybody. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of getting you started. We hear that so often. People don't reach out to us because they're like, well, my specific aims page is not done, or like, what we're asking for when we say send your specific aims, it could be as just some bullets, like just let us know what is the research area and what are the research questions you're thinking about. And it doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be in a, what is it, PHS 398 form. Like, we're not asking for any of that. We're just asking for something to get us started in terms of saying, hey, yeah, this is relevant. And for some of our programs, as Marguerite outlined, it's a matter of saying, no, this isn't NINDS at all. Don't waste your time on us. Let me put you in connection with my colleague at NIDA so you can get started there. But don't make that mistake of kind of burning out your time on the front end. And then by the time you send it to us, it's 2 weeks before you have to submit. It's not gonna work for anybody. And you're kind of, you know, doing harm to yourself. Make the conversations early.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing to do in general with, I'm not sure if applying for this mechanism at this point in time in my career is a good idea. Don't ask your classmate who's at the same point as you and did the diversity, you know, the mechanism that you did, because they'll tell you what their experience was and you are not them. So you're not going to have the same experience. Talk to us, ask us a question. And generally you can talk to any program director and they can help you figure out the right mechanism, or, you know, the answer may be it's too late right now. You might have to wait a couple of years so you can apply to X. But it's not, you know, it's not a closed door. And now you've had the opportunity to speak to a program director and feel like I have a person who's like working for me. And if they don't respond, you connect with somebody else. And of course at NINDS, we're happy to be your home base if you want to connect with us and we connect you directly with somebody else. But if you're thinking, hey, should I apply for the diversity supplement first or this other fellowship, or should I just go for the fellowship? Do you think I'm too late in applying for this? And we're happy to walk through that with you, because all situations are not created equal. And sometimes it does, some new may help us say, no, actually you are perfect for that. You can definitely apply for this and then go and apply for this other thing. So let us be the ones to guide you. You know, I know there are many faculty who think they know it all, but some of them are just change, policies change, things get updated all the time. And there's no way they can keep up with it because they're not actually applying for it, right? Like they applied for an F-31 10 years ago and it has changed. You know, policies have just been updated. So
I can barely keep up and I work here, so.
We work here, exactly.
And the other most important thing is, let us say no to you. We don't, if you ask us something and the answer is no, whatever, don't say no to yourself. Yes, right? Great point. I feel like the people that are most successful in this enterprise of surviving and thriving in academia, as the phrase is, they shoot their shot. You ask questions and we will give you what is the policy and what are the facts. And sometimes it's hard to interpret from what is written. And in some respects, that's a good thing, because sometimes there is a gray area for, you know, this thing we call life, right? Life happens. And sometimes, you know, the timeline, you've been a postdoc for 5 years, but guess what? One of those, you know, you had a child and there you can get an extension for a year. It's amazing. A lot of people don't know that. Or say you're, you know, unfortunately, we've had a few cases now where I've heard, you know, an advisor has passed away. So on paper, it looks like you've had a number of postdoc years, but in reality, you had to figure out how to get back on your feet and, you know, find another lab. And, you know, we're not mind readers. We won't know your story until you tell us your story. And as I said, there are certain things that you know, we just can't change. It's the policy, is the policy. Yeah. But there are other things that we can say to you, oh, actually, you know, this is an extenuating circumstance. And so don't be afraid to reach out and have that conversation. Don't take yourself out on your own.
And don't be discouraged by rejection. In season 2, episode 1 of the podcast, we have a grantee who applied for a fellowship award and didn't get it. I don't even think it was discussed. And then her first NIH award was a K-99. Like, that's huge, but she took all of the information that she learned. Some of it was, you know, she just sort of approached it not in the best way, but she took feedback she got from reviewers, really sat down and planned things out, and ended up being very successful. So, you know, even if you do your best and things don't quite work out, it's not the end of it for you. It's not, I will never succeed, I'll never get a faculty if I don't get this, you know, award as a graduate student that's gonna then dictate the rest of my life. That's not how it works. It seems like doom and gloom, but if you pay attention to Twitter and your classmates, I did when I was a graduate student, I didn't think that there was any way that I would ever be funded for anything, for any reason. You can get sort of bogged down and tell yourself no before you even have a chance to try. And if one of us gets a hold of you, you will think that you can just do anything. You be queen of the world or king of the world or royalty of the world. So yeah, let us either tell you no or help you say yes. No, we're gonna figure this out. And here's a podcast, a webinar, and a whole bunch of other resources to help get you to where you need to go.
I'm so disappointed in you guys, though, especially you, Lauren. I thought she would say that and then you would start playing the podcast. I thought we were going to do a preview here, like an after hours, what do you call it, from there? We're going to open a red curtain and it was going to...
Michelle, we can't
That's it.
To be
That's
that.
what I would have done for you all. I wouldn't have made you go to the, what do you call it, the BuzzFeed or the you know,
Buzzsprout.
the iTunes. I would have given you that little snippet right here. But yeah.
Sharing audio is some advanced Zoom. I'm not sure I'm there yet.
I've tried and I've failed many times.
Right. Well, we promise to be better next year.
I hope we can be in person next year. That would be better.
You know, everybody keeps saying
and we'll have
that.
stickers for you. I mean, I can't show you my computer because my sticker's on my computer. But yeah, we have little NINDS Building Up a Nerve podcast stickers that you can put on your badge or on your computer.
But Angeline, I will not have both vaccine shots by, what is it, November? Or is SFN is in October?
November.
November? Are we all going to have those 2 shots by then? I don't know.
No idea.
Because that's what it's going to need to get. I'm going to need that to be there.
If I have both shots, everybody's getting hugs. If they consent, they can have a hug. But yeah, unless those 2 shots are there, we'll be on the Zoom platform again. But you guys have all of our information. Please reach out if you want to follow up on this. If you end up having new questions, happy to help in any way we can.
Yeah, reach out to us.
And tell your peers, tell folks about this, tell your mentors, other faculty. They, you know, I think sometimes also faculty think that they know everything, and I don't mean that in a boasty way. I mean, they think they know because that's the system that they've been in, and then they might learn new things about how, you know, these mechanisms work, that there's another F32, that NINDS has one of those. So sometimes they have plans for their postdocs and they don't even realize what the different resources are or the different mechanisms. So anytime you have an opportunity to share some of this information, please do. We keep the training in mind, but it really is for all levels to get comfortable with understanding NIH, and that it will likely change. You're gonna.
That's the one thing we can guarantee. As soon as you get real comfortable, we're gonna change it, because that's the way. That's the way it needs to have worked in terms of policy. A lot of times, I would say it's the change for the better, but it can be disconcerting, and we understand that. So so don't feel bad to ask us. And also, I'll speak for myself. Don't feel bad to remind me that I forgot your email. We get a huge amount of email per day.
Every day.
The quote is, so I think it was Lauren who gave me this quote. It was just like, what is it? It's like not a haiku, but what is it? Every day I get emails or something like that. And so my intention is to answer those emails, but some days it gets away. And so that's the other thing. And I speak for myself, but I'm no busier than anybody else. Your program directors and other people don't suffer silently. So a lot of times when we tell people, reach out to your program officer, they'll say, well, I did, and they never responded. And I'm like, well, remind them, send it a few times. Now it gets to a point where it gets ridiculous and you're stalking somebody, then yeah, you probably need to move on to another strategy. But I would say, people are busy. And so, have patience with folks, and it's okay to remind them that they haven't responded to you. Give it a few days though. I do get that 24-hour reminder, and that kind of sets me crazy because I'm like, give me 2 days, but don't feel bad about reminding people that they haven't responded to you.
And the emails don't have to be really long. Actually, the shorter the better, because then someone can see exactly what they need right up front, but make it easy for them. Attach your specific aims, your bio sketch always, so they know kind of where you are in your career. And then 1 or 2 sentences, this is what I'm looking for. Can I speak with you? Here are my available times. Makes it even easier for them sort of to plug in. Have the subject be need help finding mechanism for a grad student, make it very clear so that it's easy, because sometimes even when I'm going through my email, it's easier to answer the ones that are very upfront and I know exactly what they want and I can dedicate that time. When I have to sort of spend time reading the email to figure out what it can get buried, and I come back to it a little bit later. Yes, especially for trainees, make it as easy as possible for a program director to be able to just respond to you right away. Feel free to follow up. And like I said, Michelle said, go elsewhere if you don't feel like there's a response time, because sometimes sometimes unbeknownst to us, folks go on sick leave, and because they're sick, they didn't put out a way, message up, so you don't actually know that something's happened, or they may have moved branches, moved institutes, and you don't know. So it's also fine to just follow up with someone else. I reached out to this person. Can you help me? Done.
All right, I gotta go walk my dog, tearing down stairs up. So it was good spending time with all of you.
Yes, thank you for
joining us.
Thank you all so much for the information. It was very helpful.
Oh, good. We're glad.
Yeah.
See you soon.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.